Taxation is widely understood as a revenue mechanism, a way for a governing authority to collect resources for roads, defense, and public administration. But if we map the economy using the Brain Kinematics Model, a framework that treats financial systems like fluid dynamics, we see a different set of definitions here. Economists like John Maynard Keynes were instrumental in shaping this understanding of macroeconomic stabilization, arguing that the state must intervene to smooth out these extreme pressure gradients. This interventionist view stands in contrast to classical theories. Adam Smith and his successors focused on preserving the kinetic flow of the market, viewing central routing as a potential friction. Regardless of the specific philosophy, all organized societies rely on this mechanism to prevent excessive strain deprivation in their most vulnerable nodes. Ultimately, taxation functions as the physical regulator of the social body, preventing destructive asymmetry and ensuring civilizational continuity. A conceptual proposal has emerged that challenges the central routing monopoly, self-owned tax, or SOT. The mechanic of SOT is a direct shift in authority. Instead of sending funds to a central treasury, individuals decide exactly where their specific tax contributions are allocated. This model emphasizes direct democratic participation. It allows for localized optimization, where a taxpayer can fund a neighborhood school or a specific environmental initiative, theoretically eliminating bureaucratic alienation. From a systems engineering perspective, we have to ask if a completely distributed routing network can mathematically sustain the core functions of a state. Modeling a fully decentralized tax system through the BKM framework suggests that this topology leads to a specific failure state, systemic fragmentation. To understand why that fragmentation occurs, we first have to examine how traditional economic architectures route their strain. Transition into SOT represents a total re-architecting of how a society maintains its physical and economic existence. Different political economies are essentially distinct blueprints for routing financial strain. This is a liberal capitalist architecture, prioritizing fast kinetic flow. Resources move quickly, but central redistribution pathways are thin. The primary risk is extreme strain concentration. As localized nodes swell without smoothing pathways, inequality widens. In a social democratic topology, central valves open wide. High progressive taxation and universal welfare systems pull volume from the top, spreading it across the end nodes. This creates a more equalized system, but it introduces the risk of taxation friction, where the redirection of flow begins to slow the kinetic energy of the entire economy. Central planning models, associated with Karl Marx, attempted to take this further, capturing the entire economic surplus and routing it through a single state apparatus. Despite these massive differences in ideology, every one of these systems relies on centralized strain routing to maintain coherence. While this centralization guarantees strategic continuity, it inherently carries the massive risk of bureaucratic rigidity and concentrated corruption. Shifting to a self-owned tax model requires the literal erasure of that central routing valve. The central pump is wiped out. In an SOT network, citizens become routing nodes, drawing paths directly to chosen public projects. This topology brings adaptability and immediate local feedback, bypassing the center and creating strong anti-corruption incentives. Cities like Paris and Porto Alegre have explored this through participatory budgeting, allowing residents to vote on the allocation of specific local funds. While this model increases localized participation, it simultaneously reduces the network's capacity for macroeconomic strategic planning. The fatal flaw in the SOT topology is its total reliance on behavioral economics for infrastructure routing. Human decision-making is influenced by emotion, tribal identity, and short-term biases. We tend to fund the projects we can see and touch. This routes massive volume toward emotionally visible projects. Local parks and schools swell with excess flow. Meanwhile, invisible public goods, sewage, epidemiology, and courts provide no emotional prestige. Because they are out of sight, they receive zero flow and dim. This creates the free rider problem. Individuals benefit from a stable legal and physical order without directing their tax flow to maintain the systems creating it. Friedrich Hayek warned that complex coordination can collapse when collective systems are left unmanaged and uncoordinated. As the invisible background nodes dry up and break, they trigger a cascade failure. The overfunded visible nodes lose their structural support, and the entire network collapses. Fully decentralized taxation mathematically fragments the state, as behavioral biases starve the core maintenance nodes required for civilization to function. Solving the SOT paradox requires an architecture that optimizes both central continuity and distributed feedback. This is the layered hybrid model. The foundation is the core layer, where 80 to 90% of taxation remains mandatory and centrally routed to defense, courts, and basic infrastructure. This layer ensures the survival of invisible collective goods, immune to emotional bias. Above the core is the SOT layer, where 10 to 20% of flow is allocated by direct citizen choice for specialized development projects. This preserves the benefits of civic engagement and localized optimization without threatening the structural integrity of the core. An independent audit layer enforces transparency, preventing these distributed flows from being captured by local elites. By layering these systems, we integrate democratic feedback into an architecture that remains strategically coherent. Ultimately, taxation is a mechanism for social stabilization and the preservation of continuity. Every society exists in a state of tension between the kinetic freedom of markets and the collective stability of redistribution. Civilizations tend to destabilize and collapse when they reach the extremes, either total centralized strain accumulation or total decentralized fragmentation. The future of systemic stability lies in engineering the precise ratio between mandatory central continuity and distributed democratic choice.